summertime, so, and a lot of you are traveling, especially if you live in Arizona where it's really hot and we're all escaping the heat. But a lot of times when you're traveling, you don't necessarily have the room or the space to do some of the exercises that are part of your normal movement routine. Frequently, you might find yourself in a space where you don't want to get down onto the floor. The carpet maybe is looking a little dirty, you're not sure, or for whatever reason you're not feeling comfortable. So today I'm going to show you some exercises that you can do, 5 things with a wall, okay, and a door jamb. So we're going to go through each of those, explaining how you can add those to your routine while you're on the road. All right, so the first exercise we're going to do is called a crescent stretch, and you may have done this in a version lying down on the floor, but we're going to do a version with the wall. So the first thing is that you want to back up to the wall, and you're going to bring the back of your pelvis and your sacrum onto the wall, but your heels will need to be a little bit further away so that you have room for your bottom. Okay, so you're not going to bring your heels right to the wall because you're going to feel like you would be pushing forward a little bit. So you want to make sure that you have nice vertical legs. Okay, room for your bottom, nice neutral pelvis. So we're going to look at the hip bones and the pubic bone, creating a nice vertical triangle. Once you have that neutral pelvis, the second thing you need to pay attention to with the wall is where your ribs are. So if I bring my thumbs onto the bottom ribs, fingers onto the hip bones, I'm going to allow my ribs to soften and drop back so that I can feel pretty close to those bottom ribs hitting the wall. Okay, so I'm going to stay in that alignment here. Now from here, I'm going to bring my hands over the head. Okay, now be careful when you do this that those ribs haven't shifted. So you might have to bring your hands a little further away from the wall than you would anticipate. I'm going to take my left hand, grab onto my right wrist, and I'm going to pull my body over to the left side, keeping my ribs on the wall. So I want to feel that connection, that's not changing. And then you're just going to stay here. You're going to think about breathing into that right side of your rib cage. Nice big inhale. And nice big exhale. Try to relax the shoulders, keep those feet planted into the ground. One more nice big inhale. And exhale, bring your body back up to where you started. Double check your alignment. So are your ribs still connected to the wall? And then we're going to switch sides. So this time my right hand is going to grab onto the left wrist, keeping those ribs connected. Arms are slightly in front of you. And then I'm going to pull myself over into that C shape, that crescent shape, over to the right side. Take a nice deep breath in, breathing into those left ribs. And exhale, soften the rib cage, melt the sternum away from your chin. One more breath. And then exhale, bring your body back up to vertical. And you can go ahead and repeat this multiple times each side. You can stay longer on a side if it feels good to you. The really important thing is just watching where those ribs are. All right, so for the next exercise, we're going to do a standing rotation. So same alignment as before, feet are a little bit away from the wall, neutral pelvis, those ribs connecting to the wall. So I have to soften down a little bit. I'm going to bring my hands right in front of me. You can clasp your hands if you'd like. You can point the index finger forward if that helps you. But you want to make sure the shoulders are down here. I have a tendency to lift up, so make sure they're relaxed. Now, keep your pelvis still against the wall so you can feel it there, but I'm going to let my ribs pivot to one side, keeping those bottom ribs in contact with the wall. So now the left side of my rib cage is more in contact with the wall, but I can still feel that connection. And then I'm going to come back to center, and I'm going to slide to the opposite side. And then come back to center. Now you'll notice it's different than rolling, so I'm not rolling my ribs away from my pelvis. I'm just pivoting my rib cage around my spine. And if you want to involve the breath here, which we all should of course, inhale as you rotate. Exhale back to center. Inhale. Exhale back to center. And you can do this multiple times each side. You can stay longer in a twist if you'd like, taking a few breaths here, whatever it feels like your body needs right now, but just again, making sure that those ribs stay nice and connected. right, so for the third exercise, we're going to do a hip glide. So you're going to start with the alignment that you had before, with the feet a little bit away from the wall, except I'm going to have you widen your feet. So your feet are going to be wider than your pelvis significantly. And then I'm also going to have you move your feet a little further away from the wall. So I'm about 6 inches away. My heels are about 6 inches away. So you should feel a little bit like you're leaning back into the wall. Okay. Now from here, we want to check the alignment again. So neutral pelvis, hip bones, pubic bone in a nice vertical triangle. And then those ribs are dropping down and back so that they are settled on top of the pelvis. Now, like before, bring your thumbs onto the bottom of your ribs, fingers onto your hip bones, and I'm going to have you tip forward in a hinge. So you're hinging at your hip sockets so that your spine stays in nice alignment here. So I'm maintaining all of my spinal curves, and I'm just creasing in my hip sockets here. You're going to go as far as you can without allowing your spine to change at all. Okay, so it may not be this low, it may be lower. Now when you get to the end of your range, you can let your hands rest on your thighs, you can let them drop towards the floor, or if you would like a little extra support here, so it's more of a relaxed stretch, you can bring a stool or a chair in front of you and place your hands there. Now in this position, you should be able to feel your sit bones against the wall, so I can feel them nice and connected. You want to keep that connection, and you're going to slide your pelvis to one side along the wall, and then you're going to slide to the other side. So I'm maintaining that connection of my sit bones to the wall. And as I do this, I'm working on the mobility in my hip sockets. So my femurs are moving in those hip sockets. You might feel a little bit of a stretch on the inside or outsides of your thighs. And if the stretch feels good to you, you can always stay longer to one side. Take a few breaths there. Or you can just continue to move back and forth at your own pace. Just make sure here that your shoulders aren't holding tension. That's a common thing to let them lift up here. So try to relax them down away from the ears. All right, so for the fourth exercise, this is going to be a wall press, and there are 2 variations that you can work on with this. So we're going to start facing the wall, and maybe start about, I don't know, 1.5 feet away from the wall to begin, and then you can adjust your feet once you see what we're doing. Your hands are going to come onto the wall, and I would say slightly below shoulder height. You want to spread the fingers. See if you can get your middle fingers pointing up towards the ceiling. And then from here, we're going to rotate those arms so that the elbow creases also point up towards the ceiling as best as you can. So you're not going to rotate so far that your hands curl up off the wall, but you're going to rotate as far as you can, maintaining that hand alignment. So once you have this, we're going to work on the scapula. So I'm going to keep my arms straight, but you're going to let your sternum move towards the wall, and you want to feel your scapula or your shoulder blades glide together in the back of the ribs. And then you're going to press away from the wall, thinking about creating space in between those scapula. And then again, so we're dropping towards the wall, and then further away. And again, and notice my arms are staying straight, so the only movement is really those shoulder blades gliding around the ribs. Now, if you'd like to take a little bit more weight into those arms, while you're doing this exercise, you can actually step your feet further away. You might have to adjust your hands down a little bit. And here will be a little bit more weight bearing for those arms. So this is the first exercise you can do in this position here. Now the second one, I'm going to adjust my body a bit back to where I started. Hands are going to come up a little bit. So if I'm doing that nice movement of the scapula, I want to start with my scapula wide, and you want to try to keep them wide. They may not be fully wrapped around the ribs, but we don't want them to collapse together for this next movement. So scapula stay wide. It's just going to be a push-up. So I'm going to bend the elbows, lowering my body towards the wall, and then I'm going to press the wall away, without moving the scapula, and that's the tricky part. So we don't want to collapse the chest towards the wall. We want to just keep the scapula nice and stable and only bend the elbows. Okay. Now the other thing is you want to think about those elbows dropping straight towards the ground rather than out to the side. So we're working on this nice rotation of the arms. You should feel this in your triceps working pretty hard here. And again, feel free to adjust the feet out and the hands down a little bit if you would like a little bit more upper body work. Okay, so for our last exercise, we're going to do an arm hang that will kind of be a stretch and an opener for the shoulder, neck, upper arm area. So you're going to use a door jamb or the corner of a wall. A door jamb might allow you to grip a little bit easier. And for this exercise, start with your hand slightly below shoulder height. So I'm going to start here with my hand wrapped around the corner there, slightly below shoulder. And I'm going to start with my body turned a little bit towards the arm. So my arm is kind of at a diagonal from where my sternum is. So with the arm here, you want your elbow to be a little bit soft, so you're not pushing into hyperextension, you're not hanging on your ligaments. So just soften that elbow ever so slightly. And my feet are kind of, I don't know, say 1.5 feet away from where my hand is. Now, this might be too much weight on your arm, so you can feel free to move your feet further away if you would just prefer to have the stretch and not the work in the arm. I'm going to move my feet a little closer here, so I'm doing more hanging actually from my hand. And now you might notice here that this is already a pretty good stretch, and if that is, stay here. If you'd like a little bit more of a stretch, you're welcome to tilt your head away from your arm. And you can also work on turning your body away from the arm as well. Now you don't want to turn so far that that shoulder starts to lift and inwardly rotate here. So you want to keep the shoulder down and open. And then you're just going to stay here and do a little hanging. And again, you can feel free to adjust your feet, adjust your body. You should be getting some nice stretch in the neck, upper arm, chest area, maybe down even into your forearm, depending on where you have tension. And then once you're done with this side, you can go ahead and switch to the other side.